Good afternoon, everyone. It is Wednesday, August 18th, 2021 at 3 o'clock p.m. And that means it's time for Women in Business. And I am so excited today because y'all, there's a guest. Wow. After weeks of bad fate with all the guests, there's actually a guest here waiting backstage. I'm so excited. And because she's going to be really awesome and cool and we're going to have so much to talk about, I'm not going to waste any time with any of the rest of this stuff. I'm just going to tell you who she is and we'll bring her on and we're going to have a great conversation. It's going to be so fun. You totally want to be here for this one. So Tracy Johnston-Aldworth is a Canadian businesswoman and entrepreneur based in the Waterloo region of Ontario, who is known for her public service and environmental activism. Her firm, Trace's Printing, founded in 1985 and emphasizing employee profit sharing, was lauded for its efforts to recycle materials, reduce energy consumption, save water, and use ink efficiently. She was recognized by the Government of Ontario for her work promoting environmentalism and sustainability. Her firm was featured in a 1995 documentary, Stop Waste from Adding Up. So clearly impressive. Let's bring her in. Hi, Tracy. Thanks for being here.
How are you doing?
I'm good, and I'm so excited to talk to you about so many things. But the first one I want to talk to you about is the reason that I found you, which is the Women in Screen Printing Awards.
Right.
Now, you were one of the inaugural class that won the award for the first time.
I did.
And you were one of two. There was an Australian woman who had a shop in Australia, I believe, and you were Canadian. So
right.
It's an international.
There was quite a few Americans as well. So, you know, in my case, you know, I'll be starting 37 years October 1st. So wow. I think longevity has its own rewards sometimes. You take your whole career and you condense it down onto a page. You can look pretty impressive to everybody.
Well, I was going to just say, I have here a list of the awards y'all have received over the years. I'm going to just read a couple of these for a minute. The Gold in Printers category from the Community Votes in Kitchener-Waterloo, the Women in Screen Printing Award from Screen Printing Magazine, Employee Engagement Award from the Greater KW Chamber of Commerce, Women of Influence 2019, Woman of Achievement Award 2015, both from the Zonta Club, Festival or Event Volunteer Award, Business of the Year from the Greater KW Chamber of Commerce. And this is just this list goes on and on. I'm not going to read it all because we'd be here for an hour and a half just reading awards. But let me ask you, because one of the platforms that I talk about a lot is women who need to promote themselves more. We need to put ourselves out there. So when these awards came in, did you apply for them?
Sometimes I applied for them. Sometimes other people did. Sometimes employees did. But don't fool yourself. A lot of it is really great, shameless self-marketing, which I advocate to everyone. Because in all honesty, if you don't blow your own horn, almost nobody's going to do it for you. And so when I qualify for awards, or I've done the work, I've done the volunteering, I've done all those things. So they're all like original things. But if I'm going to sit around on my butt waiting for people to nominate me, it's probably not going to happen. So once I realized that these awards will give you your unique selling propositions, you can say you're award winning. People and customers and employees, they like that you're environmental, and they like that you volunteer, and they like that you're a good printer, or you're good in service, or whatever. You know, everybody likes everything. You know, now it's like being socially conscious is very important. Being environmental is very important. So if it's important to me and it's important to my customers, that should generate some business, because I think that people are looking for suppliers that are environmental, are social conscious, are friendly, you know. I don't know. That's what I think anyway. But back to your original point about women, I think that we've been raised to be nice and polite and not toot our own horn and not, you know, brag about who you are. Like, this is probably not going to be popular, but I know lots of men who talk about who they are, and they're like giant big shots, and that seems totally socially acceptable, right? You've been to those cocktail parties with those guys, right? We all have. But if women do it, somehow they're just too full of themselves. They think too highly of themselves. And we have to get rid of those social things that just aren't relevant anymore. Our businesses are just as important. We need to tell people what we're doing really well, why we're doing it, why it's important, and why it should be important to them. And it should bring revenue because you're investing in your community and maybe the world and all that stuff when you're doing all this stuff. So it's like I'm giving you a great big jumble of ideas at once, but self-marketing is incredibly important. And I just don't know why I'm not seeing more women do it.
Well, I think you hit on it. I think we're getting an echo there. I think the major thing is, oh, now it's gone. Okay. I think the major thing is, like you said, women are taught. We had a conversation before we started where you said women are taught to promote other people, not themselves. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a major piece of it is you're taught if you talk about your own accomplishments, then you're bragging. Or my favorite one, men don't like women who talk about themselves. I'm like, well, then they don't like me. It's okay.
Yeah, I can live with that.
Yeah, I'm good with that. It's all right. But I mean, it's the whole idea of you don't want to seem boastful or like you're bragging, or even, women are supposed to be quiet and they're not supposed to put themselves forward. But like you said, if you don't pursue letting people know how good you are at stuff, nobody else is going to do it for you.
I've been in business so long that when I opened the business with my dad, he's been gone, close to 30 years now. Mm-hmm. And I kept the business and my sisters were partners and I bought them out and now I own the business singly. People would come in the business, mostly men would come in and they were looking and they wouldn't talk to me. They would just try to talk to my dad, even though he didn't want any part of selling or any part of the creative part. He just was helping me finance it and he was doing the bookkeeping or whatnot. And so he chronically was saying, you need to talk to her. And I realized that the world wasn't used to women in business, I guess, almost 40 years ago. Or the other thing is, these guys would start hammering at me about negotiating my prices. And you're like, dude, prices are the prices, right? I don't pay minimum wage. So if you want to go super cheap, find somebody else to go to. And I was highly unpopular in some realms for that. But I think my job is to make sure that my employees get paid and that we make money, because going bankrupt at this point would really suck. And with COVID and everything else, it's been a bit of a long haul. But
I imagine.
I think that when I got into business, I had no idea that I had to negotiate things and I had to self-promote myself. And it took a while. It's almost like I was scared to self-promote with the environmental stuff, because I was like, oh, you're going to bring the labor board down on you and the environmentalists and everybody's going to be, and you realize that even the government inspectors that came in to look at what chemical we were using, I imported chemical from California. They were always big front runners of environmental stuff. So I watched what they did. I didn't need to reinvent the wheel, but I did have to buy that expensive wheel and import it to Canada before we had those chemicals. And even when the inspectors came in, they didn't even know what they were looking at. I knew they didn't, right? So I got in a giant fight with some chemical guy who wanted me to buy his cleaner. And I said, I think it's unsafe. I don't like it. I'm not buying it. And he said, well, then I'm going to report you to the labor board. And I'm like, go ahead and report me to the labor board, right? And so he did. And then when the labor board came in, I knew they didn't know what they were looking at. So I think that I was, at that time, a little bit ahead of the environmental race. Mm-hmm. So it made it really easy for me when the world started catching up and thinking about environmentalism. If you're hearing something, it could be my cat is losing her crap because she's locked out from me. So anyway, I think that I was lucky because I chose a lot of good ideas at the beginning, because I figured if I'm going to work in an industry a long time, I would rather not die of some crazy chemical disease or lead poisoning. I mean, we just got rid of leads and inks in the mid 80s. So that's been a while, but all the other stuff we had to catch up with. And you have to make sure that your employees are safe and you're safe, right? So,
well, and I mean, I like what you said. I don't like what you said, but I identify with what you said about the whole men still, and I think it still exists today. Men still tend to default to going, if there's a guy in the room, they'll go talk to the guy. And it's like, I mean, I work with an organization where the 3 main managers are women.
right.
And Applicant Getaway. And we still would have people come into the room and go to the showrunner's husband because he was the guy in the room. And he's like, dude, I'm grunt work. I'm not here to run things. Go talk to them. And it was like, what is that? I mean, especially in 2021, what the hell is that?
I don't know. We're white women. We're just like a hair down from all the old white men. We should definitely be there. I can't believe that we still have to fight, even though we're like a nick down from the old white guys.
I
right?
know.
I
know. And I'm like as white as you can get, man. And I'm just like, I mean, leaving aside how hard it is for all the people of color, which I think is even an added burden on to everything. I mean, I can't imagine being female and a person of color. That's gotta just suck like all out of proportion to everything. But oh man, I don't know. I just feel like there's so many just doing the show, I've met so many strong kick-ass women who are doing such amazing things, and they all seem to have the same story. And I guess the question I have is, how do we change that? And I fully understand you probably don't have the answer to that question, but it's just annoying.
I think that being present in your business and the more people you meet, and I have lots and lots of customers now I have customers that I had the first week I opened 36 years ago.
So honestly, that speaks well.
Now, I have also lost lots of customers. A lot of them were older than me, but some were students. They were high school students when I'd opened. I was in my 20s, and now they're still customers, and they've gotten married and divorced and had kids and got remarried. And, we have these long-term relationships. And I think that those men know I'm a dependable supplier and don't treat me any lesser. But it still happens sometimes that you get the odd guy that just hasn't have a personal, I don't know what to say, he hasn't upgraded. He's not like man point 2. He needs to upgrade his thinking. And it's not just about women. It's about people of color and trans and gay and all of it. Like Black Lives Matter, all children matter. It all is very important. It can't be neglected. I don't even know how I got here. Sorry, I even started that conversation, because that's like really comprehensive to get into.
Well, and I think it ends up being, in the case of women, sometimes we're our own worst enemy, because we tend to listen to the people who are telling us, be quiet, be small, don't, and one of the best things I ever learned, I have to say, because I was small for a very long time. And by that, I mean, I kind of hid my light under a bushel a little bit because it intimidated people. Yeah. And I got older and I was like, screw it. This is what I can do. And if you can't play in my arena, then I'm sorry. But it took me a long time to get there. Yeah. And I think more women need that.
Yeah. And when I was a kid, I was really, really shy, like crazy shy. And the short story about me being outgoing now is probably I'm still a shy person inside, but I've forced myself to be outgoing. My sister, when I was like 9 years old, dated an actor and married him. And I won't go into any details of who it was. But I realized at 9 years old, when I was so quiet and so shy and so sort of repressed, I was the perfect little white girl, right? And I realized that there were 2 kinds of people. There were people that were shy like me that would be invisible their whole lives. And then there was people like him who were magnetic and outgoing, and they were super fun. And all you wanted to do was hang around them all the time because they were just so great to be around. And they were, I don't know, just enchanting and magnetic. And I was like, oh yeah, I'm going to be that. Maybe I'm not so enchanting, but I think that I I'm much more charming than I would have been. I'm much more outgoing. I can public speak now. I had to force myself to do all those things, where I was the kid in grade 3 that burst out crying in the middle of like public speaking and just went into meltdown, and my parents had to come to the school, and it was horrible. It's one of my most horrible. And then, so by the time I actually learned my first public speaking, I got asked to speak in front of the mayor and city council, and I think it was like 1986, and I was just terrified. And I thought, okay, I just have to do this. I don't have to be good. I have to be adequate. So I was going for adequate, and I wrote 2 jokes and put them in, and people laughed. I don't know if they laughed because they were sorry for me or because I actually was charming. But I remember I had so much adrenaline, and I was on stage. It was just a couple minutes that I couldn't actually see. I had so much adrenaline in my system. My eyes went foggy. And I'm like, that's a lot of adrenaline. But I got through it. And after that, everything was uphill. So a lot of my outgoingness is because I forced myself. I've just totally forced myself to be outgoing because I have those moments of incredible shyness that I don't like to think about much, but I know they're hiding there waiting for me, you know. Well, like if I ever meet George Clooney, that's when I'll go shy. Then I'll just
there you go.
And I'll miss my chance.
Well, I'm just laughing because you just totally told my story almost. I'm very reserved, and I would not public speak. I was terrified in grade school and junior high to get up in front of people. And the first seminar I ever did, I've told this story before, but the first seminar I ever did had a podium in the room. The only podium that has ever been in any seminar room I've ever had. And I clung to that podium. It's the only thing that kept me on my feet. But I made it through the first one. And then I knew I could do it. And then now I love it. And it's like one of my favorite things ever. But holy crap, that's terrifying.
It's, you know, just thinking about it terrifies me. That podium, I just have this vision of it being like your life jacket. You know, you're hanging on to this thing. You got the piece of paper, it's all sweaty and wrinkled, you know, and you've got your notes. But I think for anybody that doesn't do public speaking or doesn't go out there and do it, it's a fantastic thing to learn. I mean, I know, what do they say? Statistically, people would rather like be dead than public speak or something, right? But I think it would be better to public speak than be dead. That's my theory. So,
you know, it seems a little extreme to go, you have to talk to these people for 5 minutes or we'll shoot you. Oh, I'd rather be shot. Thank you. No, I mean, but what really amazes me about it is once I learned how to do it and feel comfortable with it, the world opens up because there's so many more opportunities. So that's one of my passions, is getting more women to do that sort of thing. We should have more women speakers. We should have more women doing shows like this. We should have that sort of stuff. So I love that we had this little discussion, but I have other things that I want to talk to you about. And the next one that I want to bring up, just because I want to start with your employee incentive program, but I want to start with the list of trips that you all have taken your employees on, because listen to this, guys. Panama, cruise Italy, Greece, Croatia, and Montenegro, Rome, Italy, Vidaro and Havana, Cuba, New Orleans, a cruise, Mexico, Belize, and Roatan. I don't even know how you say that. Some city I cannot pronounce, Guanacaste, Costa Rica. Probably got that wrong.
Guanacaste? Anyway,
Las Vegas, Nevada, and there's just a whole list. Jamaica, all sorts of places. So I got to ask, because, you know, your typical employee incentive is, here's a coffee mug. Or, you know, maybe if you're lucky, you get a bonus at the end of the year or something. So I mean, these are like serious trips. These are not like, hey, we're going to the local campground for a campfire and some marshmallows. How do you do that?
Well, It started because the Canadian government used to let us give a gift, as long as it wasn't money, of up to $50 tax-free. They changed the law to $500. So I guess I was in a decade and I was thinking $500 is tax-free is good. What thing would I buy? And then I started about thinking, what thing would I want? And I'm like, I mean, you could do like TVs or slow cookers. And I'm like, that's just not that exciting. And I was like, I'd really like adventure. So what would be adventurous? And it came to me about traveling. So our first trip we did to Halifax, Nova Scotia, on the ocean. It's like a university town, lots of pubs and restaurants and a casino. And it's super fun and it's small. It's really charming. And I realized that I could take most of that $500 and actually do that trip. And so suddenly it became not just a tool to reward clients, but our employees, but also a tool that kept them in place over a long, hot summer when we're super busy. So we would get the trip about 8 months into our year. I would find out if we had the profit and sales. Then we say we would get the trip, but I never tell them where we're going because I'm a budget shopper. And so I was like, who's on sale today? Let's just see what I can find, right? And then we would go in October. So August is our busiest month usually with university orientation, and it's hot and it's annoying and you have to get your employees through it and you don't want them to quit because you know if the trip's coming, you have something to look forward to. So having something to look forward to is almost better than going on a trip sometimes. It's anticipation. And then when you can pull like a fantastic trip, like going to Rome for a week was just such a great bargain. Like I just got a great bargain with a boutique hotel and it was in right near the Colosseum. And it was like, oh my God, they're going to flip out when they get this. So for me, it's really exciting because I can give to people that have earned the rewards. And I have super nice staff and they're very competent. And I have many employees who have longevity. So you want to make it worthwhile and you want to have value. We've gone to New Orleans a couple times. I would probably go every year if I just could choose it myself, because there's nothing like a party in New Orleans. But anyway, that's a conversation for another day. If you do a New Orleans show, then invite me. I'm a great tourist. I left lots of my money there. Anyway, so once in a while, it's fun to go to Europe, and it's fun. There's lots of bargains, like the cruise that was in the Aegean. That was Costa Cruise Lines. You know, they crashed that boat up on that island a few years ago. Well, their prices went right down, and the boats are beautiful, and the food's beautiful. And I figure if they crashed once, they're probably the safest boats to get on now. Like, I don't do that reverse thing. Like, I'm scared to go on a boat. It's like, give me the boat, give me the right price, I'm good. So I do budget it, and I pick up their insurance, and I pick up airport transportation. And you know what? My staff are very nice people. They always get along, but they also know they have to get along, right? But we don't, I would pull the plug on this if it turned into some crazy Donnybrook or, I don't know. They seem to like each other. They don't have to hang out with each other all the time, but they do have to be friendly. And so far we've been really, really lucky. It's fun because it's a bit unusual and it doesn't cost as much as my profit sharing that I do. But profit sharing check and you buy snow tires or you pay off your visa or you replace the slow cooker or whatever you have to, and suddenly the money's gone and it just doesn't feel, money is only good for the first like 3 seconds you have it. And then you pay your bills and you're like, oh, I have no money now. But
well, what I love about the trip thing is, like you said, it gives people something to look forward to.
Yes.
Which I really like. But I also like what you said about, hey, I budget shop. I try to get the best deal I can so we can do the best trip we can. Right. And it's about, where I can find the good deal. So I don't tell them we're going to Hawaii, or I don't tell them we're going to it's whatever where I can get the most bang for my buck, which I think puts that in the reach of businesses that maybe would think they couldn't do that. Because if you're if you're smart about it and you are strategic about it, you can get some pretty nice trips.
The last trip we did, I guess 2 years ago, was Panama. And that was all inclusive because I had a few new employees, and sometimes I'll pick all inclusive or ones that don't cost much extra money. So some of the cruises are good, except if you drink, of course, you got to pay your own bar tab. I can't pick that up. I pick up the odd drink, but not all of it. But the all-inclusive, just I can take them someplace fun. And then I usually pay for outings or tours. And Panama was incredibly cost-effective. So from Toronto, which is probably the most expensive airport in the whole freaking world, it's the highest taxed, definitely, in the world, I think. I think we're like $1,100 Canadian a person, flight and accommodation for a full week in Panama. So in American money, that would be like $750 all inclusive per person.
That's not bad at all.
And it was a beautiful resort, and I can't remember the name of the resort. I think it was a Rio, and it was good. It was great.
Sounds good. Well, I have to say, Gosta's here from Sweden, and he says trip tip icehotel.com in Sweden. So there you go. There's your next trip.
I don't know if I'm going to get a deal on flying to Sweden. It's a little far, but who knows?
Yeah. You know, I have started to think that going to Sweden might be fun because Ghost is here every week. He tells me stuff. So I'm like, let's go to Sweden. And
I really like that he calls himself Ghost. I like that.
I don't know that I'm pronouncing it right. We've had debates. It's Gusta or Gosta, and he just kind of goes with whatever we say. So I don't know that any of us are pronouncing it properly, honestly. And I like what Evelyn said too. I'm outgoing, and my husband has been told that he needs to control me. Where's the fun in that?
Yeah, there is no fun in that.
No.
And my husband likes to say, "Oh well, would you let I do volunteer work for the government? It's for CASO. It's where the Canadian government has made agreement with developing countries. So when I can take a couple weeks off, I'll go to like Ethiopia or Honduras by myself. And I go in and I do volunteer works mostly with women's businesses. And people always say to my husband, Brian, why do you let her do that? And he's like, do you even think I like let? Don't even say the word let around Tracy. Because he knows I'm going to do it anyway, but he would like to live through that conversation that I can't imagine him. That people say, why do you let her? You're like, wow, 1940s called. They like their opinion back. Thank you very much.
That's a very end, but oh my goodness, now I want to hear about this. So you go to these developing countries.
Yes.
And you help female business owners.
Yes, in Tegucigalpa, in Honduras, I went in and worked with their tourist board. And so they were looking for a new marketing plan to get more membership. And it's sort of deemed dangerous, but I don't actually believe it's that dangerous for tourists if you're in the right areas. I mean, you have to be careful everywhere, right? Having said that, there's so much abject poverty there, and they need tourist dollars, and they're really trying to develop that. So they got people doing tours, and I mean, sometimes I talk to like one guy that took photographers into the jungle to look at cotton ball bats. So if you've ever marketed anything and you wanted to market bats, look at cotton ball bats. Google them as soon as we're done this show here because they're super cute. You could market those bats in 2 seconds. And then we also talked to Marco Pays, which is the marketing department at the Palace in Tegucigalpa. So I got my butt dragged all over into all kinds of crazy places. And I was helping where I could. I did 2 years ago, I did Ethiopia. I was in Addis Ababa for 15 days, and I helped a company that was trying to do event planning in the coffee industry. So it was 2 women that that was super interesting.
Wow.
And while COVID's been on, and of course you can't travel, I've been doing some virtual coaching into Indigenous women, mostly jewelry makers or fashion makers that live in Northern Canada and New Brunswick, or could be the Yukon, not Yukon, that's American, sorry, Nunavut, or some of the Canadian provinces that are northern that are looking for help to start up. It's super cool. I don't know if the States has anything equitable, but this is been one of my lifelong dreams to be able to do this kind of volunteering where I can't fix everything, but I can be a drop in the bucket that fixes things. So I volunteer in my city, I volunteer for my country, and I volunteer in other countries. And it's super fun. You have to be a little bit, I feel like a little bit of a badass when I talk about it, because it doesn't show how scared I was when I was by myself landing in the airport, and you're like, oh my God, I want to turn around and go home. And you're like, don't do it. You got to prove you're a badass. Just go and do this. And then I would do it. And then I would come back and feel like a bit of a badass.
Now you do this through the Canadian government.
It's called Queso, and it's mostly sponsored by the Canadian government, and some other banks and whatnot help. And so they're trying to get entrepreneurship, because the only thing that makes money is business. So we need business to be worldwide, and we need women to have businesses. In Ethiopia, you saw a lot of women that were had no husbands, or their husbands had died, and they've got a bunch of kids, and they desperately need to start a business. So we would help them get those 2 cows. 2 cows is a dairy in Ethiopia. 2 cows. It would support a mother and 5 kids for the rest of their lives by having that. It would generate that. So they don't need a lot to get going. They just need the help to get their wheels turning, right? And so you come in and you figure out every way you can to help them manage without it costing a lot, or, give them the self-esteem to say, you got this, you've got it. You know what you need to do. I'm going to help you just figure out those extra things. So sometimes I talk to the government or officials or places that they want me to connect with, that they're too shy because I'm old and outgoing now. And, so it's sort of fun. I hope maybe you have something like that. We'll have to look at that.
Well,
you would be perfect at that.
Well, and I've read studies that say that if you want to raise the economic level of a country or a village or whatever, give the women the businesses, because the women will care for their families, and it raises the level of everybody, which, not that men don't, but men sometimes aren't there, or
the men are controlling income. So when I was with Zonta, which is a very, very worthy worldwide women's organization, one example was a town in Africa. Women were not allowed to fish. Only men were allowed to fish. So the women were doing handicrafts, but they couldn't support their kids anymore. Their husbands had run off or died or whatever. So Zonta lent them money to buy boats, because it wasn't illegal for them to own boats, and they would hire men to fish for them. So there was that thing, and they actually turned this whole village, and they turned themselves upside down, and then they could feed their kids and have an income. And I think we need to, as women, we need to support other women, but we also have to look at those situations and see how we can solve these little problems, right? And sometimes you feel a little overwhelmed, especially Ethiopia. I felt overwhelmed because there is so much poverty and so little water and so little food. And you're thinking, am I really making a difference? This is like crazy. Like, you feel sort of overwhelmed. And then you just have to keep thinking, I'm like, one little piece, and I'm going to do my little piece. And if I teach one woman to make an income, she can teach the next woman to make an income. And, my business can afford me to do this, to be away for that time. And my staff are 100% supportive of me being away and doing these assignments. So I'm quite looking forward to the future. Though with COVID, it's very difficult to say what will happen. I remember when I was watching the Olympics, and somebody on the Olympics said that 70% of the countries that were entered into the Olympics had not even seen one vaccine yet. So here's where we are. We are the privileged, right? So I don't know if I can do those assignments, because those countries, if they had problems before COVID, they got mega problems now. Maybe they need people to help them with business even more. Who knows, right?
Yeah, well, I definitely think you've given me a lot of food for thought, and I definitely will be seeing if there's a similar program in the US, or are there programs that people from the US can join? Because I think I'll
send you a link. I will send you a link tomorrow.
Please.
I
Do
will.
please. And we have a couple comments here that happy wife, happy life, Ghosta says. He's got it.
She said
and Evelyn wants to go with you. So on your
Evelyn,
journeys.
I think I want you to come with me. Just because you said that, you should come with me.
Well, I have to say that's something that I have looked at, but it hasn't, but listening to you talk about it, it makes me think, yeah, there's more I could be doing that I'm not doing. So
I wanted
something I need to look at.
I mean, yeah, you can volunteer and you can like sell popcorn at your local fair or whatever. To have gotten to our age and have good health and the ability to be free thinking and feel unrestrained, I know I have a lot more to offer. And I try to say I need to offer as much as I can, not just do the bare minimum in volunteering. And that's how I've sort of built up all these years, because I've done lots of local stuff. And then one day I knew that this organization was there when I opened my business in the 80s. And it's still thriving. And they probably have 700 to 800 volunteers in Kesso, and almost all of them are retired. So the majority of them are 65 and older. So I've talked to people going into crazy ass places in the world, and they're near 80 and they have an incredible amount to offer. And I'm thinking that's pretty damn gutsy. So if they could do it, one little old lady in one of my Zoom meetings where they were talking about it, she's a little old lady now. She was from Quebec and she had done 60 assignments worldwide, 60, wow. And all finance, helping with bookkeeping, because everybody needs help with bookkeeping, right? Super cool.
It's just, well, what I love about it, and for some reason, what you're saying just made me think of my grandmother a lot. And my grandmother was very, very influential in my life. And she was a teacher, and she was like a dyed-in-the-wool teacher, and she lived to be 96, 97, nice. And was fairly compos mentis right until the end. And she was always teaching people all the time, me, and, you know, she helped people learn how to read, and she helped people get their GED, and, you know, and just fostered a spirit of curiosity. And so I try to think of things that I can do in her honor, I guess. Nice. And this strikes me as one that she would absolutely love. She would be the first one on the plane going, let's go. Little old white-haired lady going, let's go. So I love it. I think it's great.
It's been incredibly fulfilling for me. And every time I'm going to go away, I am totally scared shitless, I will tell you. Like, they have to absolutely talk me down and say, you're safe, we're good, we have security in place. You're like, okay, I'm good with this. I'm good. But inside you're like, oh my God, what have I done to myself, right? So I think that I have overcome a lot of personal fears of all kinds of stuff in my life because I just make myself do it. Yeah. So it feels good to be brave, but it took a long time to get here. It takes a lot of work to be brave, especially when you're not really genuinely brave, right? I don't know anybody genuinely brave. I know genuinely reckless, but that's not the same as brave. So,
well, and I think that it's just, like you said, it's something that I'm increasingly aware of. I'm very lucky in that, and, you know, I live in a first world country. I have good healthcare. I mean, okay, expensive healthcare in America, but it's decent healthcare. And, you know, I have education and I have the ability to do what I want. And a lot of people don't have that. So yeah, if we're lucky enough to have this stuff, we have to pay it forward a little bit. So I love it.
I think so. I think what there's a saying about that, I can't remember how it goes, but volunteering is like the price you pay to be privileged, basically, you know, and it's when you see yourself actually really helping people, it's the most like people that are genuinely in trouble, you know. And Ethiopia was very eye-opening because it's a big city and there's probably 2% of the top that are well-to-do, like a very small middle class, and then a huge amount at the bottom that have nothing. And when people are laying on the street dying and people are begging at the cars, if a woman has a baby out of wedlock, she's taken out of the home, lives on the street, and she's got her baby there, and you're like, holy shit. This is it's like just the worst. So they recommend that you don't hand money out the windows, but the women that I was with driving me around in security, I gave them the money and they gave it out the window. So there's ways to get around whatever you have to do. And if a little bit of money buys water or food for people, then it's one more day that they've got hope. And you just, you do what you can. It can be a sad word, but it can also be a great world because you get a lot of people who give a crap, right?
Well,
so
I like this.
The message is always give a crap and don't be a dick, right?
There you go.
Hate people that are dicks.
Well, I like this. Evelyn said, my sister-in-law is sewing for African women sanitary pad bags so they can go to school.
Nice.
Which is something that I would never think about, but it's, it's so sad that it's something that we would be like, yeah, you put it in your purse and you go.
Right.
But
and I know in Canada there's movements where we can donate, or those supplies are put in public washrooms for women that are homeless or need that stuff. And you can't imagine what your life would be without it. And it's another thing you take for granted. Like I just can't imagine the horror of being homeless and then, oh, right, this just makes my day perfectly great. Right?
Well, and I think it's another example of the ways that the needs of women sometimes aren't considered is, a lot of the help that gets offered is like, I don't want to say generic help, but it doesn't take into account that women do have needs and issues that men don't necessarily.
Yeah. And men aren't just they're not going to be thinking of that per se. I know that Zonta did a project where they had like sterile gloves and razor blades and all kinds of stuff to help women in Africa give birth, with sterile tools and gloves and razor blades to cut the umbilical, because they were dying of infections, even though they were having perfectly normal births. But to try to give them those small amount of tools to survive is everything, right? It costs so little.
It's just amazing to me how the smallest, simplest things that we were like, I could go to the grocery store and buy these for $10 can make such a difference. So
it can save somebody's life in another country. And we don't even, we're privileged, and it's good to be reminded that we're privileged.
It is.
Right.
And that's why I really like this conversation, is because that is something that, you kind of take for granted after a while.
Yes.
I wrote a blog post a while back because I had a year in my early 20s where I was basically homeless and really screwed up and depressed, and it was just a messy time. But years later, I wrote this blog post where I said I was bitching about having to go get groceries, and I was bitching about having to go to work, and I was all this stuff that I would have absolutely, in my dark year, I would have given everything in my soul for. Yeah. But I had gotten I had forgotten the lessons I learned in that time. So I still try now to remind myself to say, I'm sitting here with a computer that I bought in my house that I own, and, talking to an amazing person, and I could have not had that,
Yes,
so I need to be grateful for it. But sorry, segue.
I think we forget to be compassionate, and we forget to be empathetic. And it's good to just keep reminding ourselves that we need to be those things if we want to make the world a little bit, or make difference in people's lives, whether you go to a local school and you help kids read, but everything contributes. It doesn't have to be, like me, where it's all glamorous and worldwide. You can do things in your local community. Sorry, that was like over the top. Anyway, you can do things in your local community. And I think we don't have generations that are volunteering anymore. So we've got that 20 to 40s that don't volunteer. when I did a lot of community volunteering, it was a certain age group around myself. We totally got volunteering in. We would have people of a certain age, or high school students that wanted to get, like the check marks for doing volunteer work while they're in high school. But we're not teaching those generations to volunteer anymore. And we need them to volunteer, and we need them to be leaders, right? And I think that I'm not seeing as much leadership skills in high school and university as I used to. There's the odd kid, they're going to be a superstar no matter what. They got the social skills, they've got leadership skills, and they're really natural to it. But most kids, they like the team thing, or not to be online and not be socially out there. So, those, I have no idea how I got to this point. I just feel like I hijacked your.
No, you're fine.
Sorry.
I told you this is what happens. We go wherever the conversation takes us. But one of the things I will say that gives me hope is that every once in a while, like you said, I do meet a young woman that I just go, she's going to be amazing, and I think we need to build more of those too. And that's one of the reasons why I'm so passionate about doing this show, is because I want to put the role models out there to say, these are the people that you can become if you're willing to do the work.
Yes, exactly.
And that's the thing. You have to be willing to do the work. I mean, I think you would probably agree with me when I say, I did not spring fully formed from Zeus's head like this, I mean, no. I went through a lot of crap to get to this place, and I'm 52. So,
yeah. Well, it took me a long time to get to this point, and I'm 64. So.
But I think the awesome thing is that we got here.
We got here, and we're still here, and we're viable, and look at us. We're like vibrant. We got something to say, and I think that you should always have something to say.
I hope so.
And I think that, and here's what worries me a bit is, I know we talk about woke and we talk about cancel culture. And I think that I know it's all a minefield. I'm going to be really delicate, but a lot of people that love to criticize or love to say, you're not saying it right, you're not thinking right, you're saying the wrong thing, are people that I don't see them volunteering. Like when I was a kid, if you bitched to your dad about something, he'd say, then get into politics, then go volunteer with your whatever, or go and, I don't like cruelty to animals, then go to the Humane Society and make a difference and, do the time. But I'm not sure that the new generations are doing as much of that because we were told, like, if you didn't like it, then you freaking change it, right? Get up.
Well, I'm just laughing. I'm just laughing right now because I had I still have, she's still alive, but I had an aunt that if you ever said, I'm bored, she said, well, then you're boring. Go find something to do. And it was like, but what she meant was, you have all these opportunities. If you're bored, go do something, go make a difference, go, and I was like, I love that idea. So she trained me out of saying I'm bored. I have to say, I don't do it because, if I'm bored, it's because I'm not living to my full potential, I guess.
That's right. So. Or you're not trying to be interested in something. And finding those things that really tickle you are really important in your life, especially with volunteering. It should be something that you really love, like you should do. I think you should do volunteer. I mean, there's lots of volunteer work available for like a zillion different charities or the food bank or reading or whatever. But once you find those things that you love doing, it's pretty gratifying. You're not going to the food bank because your parents said you're going to the food bank and you're going to pack groceries because, you're bitching, but you're not doing anything, being forced to do it. You have to find those things that appeal to you. So I love the international travel, and I like a lot of the seeing things that other people don't get to see, and being scared by things that other people don't get to be scared by, and taking pictures of them so you can show your friends how scared you were of that thing. But, that's my experience. So I think I I found a whole bunch of things that I like doing, but I've also changed over the years because I did a lot of community volunteering. I did 25 years with the Waterloo Busker Festival, which we did outdoor entertainment by buskers, and it's quite well known worldwide now. Well, not during COVID, but it turned into quite a really great festival. And I sort of started at the bottom up with a bunch of other people, and so it became very gratifying to do it. So I'm going to say that it's the one thing I worked on, that we were super careful about money. We never lost any money for the city, and we actually generated enough money to put on this festival every year for 4 days. And so I got to use my business skills, but I also love the circus, and I worked in the circus for a very short period of time when I was in college in Toronto. And so it was always my dream as a kid was to be a circus performer. So I had that little taste and filled that and realized you can't make any money at it. But I had a few years of not getting paid much, but getting to do that. So.
Oh man, you can't throw I worked for the circus out 10 minutes before we're supposed to be done. You cannot do that. But I have to say, I used to teach literacy and reading for a while, and my little joke was always that I was a writer, so I was building my own audience. But the whole idea behind it was something that I loved so much that I couldn't comprehend that there were people who couldn't do it.
Yes.
You know? And teaching, and I found, and my grandmother too, again, my grandmother's genes are strong in me. I'm a built-in teacher, honestly, but the whole thing is, there's, like you said, there's so many opportunities out there. You just have to find the one that speaks to you. And it's also the other misconception, I think a lot of time, is that it has to take 5 million hours of your life. It doesn't have to. If you have an hour a week, give an hour a week.
Yeah. If you have an hour a month, give an hour a month.
Yeah.
And don't worry about it. And, I think, like I sit on different boards. I find different things. Some are for, certainly because I know I can help. And usually it doesn't hurt on my resume. And I need to market myself to not just Queso, but anywhere else that I decide I'm going to put my resume out to. And so I'd like the screen printing award. I just sent them my resume and all the awards, and look at me. I'm pretty special. So there I got that award, and like, it's a lot of time in too, but.
Well, and I think the women in screen print, because I nominated a bunch of women this year, and they do ask a lot of very extensive questions. And part of it is, what are you doing in your community, and how have you benefited, how have you and your company benefited the community that you're in, and all that kind of stuff, which I think is amazing, because I think that's something we forget, is that it's all an ecosystem of, we're all interconnected, and we're all affecting each other. And so I really love that. And I don't really know where that was going. I just felt like I should say that, I guess.
Yeah. And, this year we haven't, like my company, we usually do a fair amount of sponsorship. A lot of times it's in kind, because people like t-shirts, right? They love t-shirts. And so this year, not so much of that, but we donated some cash to the Humane Society. And there's a few different things that we've done. But we also sponsor like flamenco dancers, and I sponsor wrestlers, and I pick oddball stuff, because I've always believed, like, baseball has lots of sponsors. Lots of companies, they get kids baseball, but not everybody gets flamenco dancers or wrestlers. And I figured that's where I fit in, right? Go with the oddball stuff. And then I can take my staff out to watch wrestlers or flamenco dancers. So I always have an agenda, right? It's to find the crazy stuff, the artists, the dreamers too. I can help support them a little bit. It's like the Italian Renaissance or whatever. Just find that little bit of sponsorship to help that creative person, because art changes the world, like music and painting and dance. Those are the trendsetters, right? That's what we've used during COVID too, I don't even want to talk about TV ever again. After COVID, I think I want to take an axe and chop up my TV, because I feel like I watched way too much TV. But
I think everybody did.
but the entertainment industry is about all that kept us going for the last year and a half.
Well, and I have to say, I mean, one of the things about COVID that I thought was kind of cool was that I realized how many connections there were with people that I didn't know in reality, you know?
Right.
I mean, my friends in the computer is what people call them, and I call them that too. But for someone like me, I mean, I'm single, I live alone. And I was a high risk person for COVID. So I self-isolated for quite a lot of that time. Mm-hmm. And if I hadn't had the people in the computer to call or talk to or do video chats with or do the show with or whatever, I would have been a lot crazier than I am normally.
I know, you would lose your mind. And I have single friends, and they were isolated, and their jobs, they were laid off. And the Canadian government was really good about acting quickly and helping support people, but it didn't really help their mental health and everything else. Mm-hmm. So it's troublesome for me because they're my friends. So the government allowed us to have one person, if it was a single person, into your home or to have communication with, as long as everybody's being careful. And so I do have friends that I see on a regular basis that are single and live alone, and they're losing their minds. It's been too long. We're waiting for jobs to come back. And, you know, some of us like me are lucky. We're not working full time yet. I'm working 30 hours a week. I've kept my staff in and paid them 30 hours a week for the last year and a half because I don't want to lose good qualified staff. And I know they are dedicated to getting the job done, and we're muddling along pretty good. There's a few government incentives I could take advantage of. But I'm not everybody. Lots of businesses had to lay off everybody. They had no, I've been a good little saver for 35 years. I don't really consider myself an entrepreneur. I sort of consider myself a common sense small business person. So, and I don't consider myself a big risk taker. So I always put away a little bit of money every year if I had a profit. And now I was saving for a rainy day. Well, I guess COVID's my rainy day. And if I have to spend that money, it'll be worthwhile to keep my staff in and keep going. And, you know, it's all good. But I'm in a good, put myself in a good position by mistake, right? I don't know if that's by mistake.
Well, it's, you know, I have to say COVID has been interesting. Let's put it that way. Well, I mean, you know, I don't know. I ended up jobless because of COVID and started my own company. So which honestly, I will say was probably the best thing that ever happened to me, but
yeah. A lot of times people get into small business because they need to make a job for themselves. You know, yeah. COVID just forced people. So congratulations, because you know what? Sometimes the worst situation can turn into one of the best things. But what I really like about what you talk about is that you're grateful for what you have, and you know what it's like to be don't have it, and things are not good. And things are bad. And there's a lot of people out there that they're in a pretty sorry way. So we can only keep our fingers crossed that either they can get some help or there will be more help and more jobs. And I know that a lot of jobs disappeared permanently in Canada. And I know that I think the stat said, now we don't have as big a population as you do, but I think there's 4 million jobs that just went gone, right? And so that's a lot of people that don't have jobs. And now we have to create more industry so we can get people back to work.
Yeah.
And like a lot of industries are just shot, like travel, and they're just gone. Right. So.
Well, and you know, we also have people here, politicians who are actively obstructing helping. So that's not good. Yeah. But we won't go there because.
That's a conversation for another time.
Well, that is a conversation for another time, and we are actually almost at an hour. So the one thing I did want to do real quick is put this up. This is the website for Tracy's business, and definitely go check that out, because we didn't even get to talk about the environmental stuff. I'm going to have you back. Good Lord.
I'm happy to come back anytime.
Don't say that to me because I'll take you up on it. But we are really like right at an hour right now. This was amazing. And I learned so much, and I'm so inspired now. And I really am. I feel like, and I really want you to, if you are on Facebook and you're interested, come join us at Women in Garment Decoration, because we'd love to have you.
Yeah.
Because we're looking for dynamic women to come and talk about the issues with us, because that's what we want to do. So I'm going to say thank you, everybody. And I don't know what next week's going to be yet. We'll find out all together next week. But thank you all for being here. Thank you, Tracy, for being here. And I will see you all next
Thank you,
Wednesday.
Christine. We love Christine. We love this Christine show. Bye, everybody.